Hey, hello, young voters.
I am
Welcome
the
back
moderator.
to.
Shut up. Hello, young voters. Welcome to today's debate between Nico Kraus and Vikaas Venkatesh. That was great. Today we're discussing the future of progressivism, whether progressives should turn to the Democratic Party or if they should turn to the third parties, and whether this debate's on which platform is more valid and which could be a better future for progressives. Anyway, let's get into the debate. Where should we start?
Yeah, opening remarks. So I guess I'll go first in saying that this is a hill that I am not super wanting to die on. So I am open to getting my mind changed on this by the cost. So it's not something that I want to. It's not something that is the most important issue, but it is a fairly important issue to the overall strategy of the left. If that's something that you might be interested, as a left winger or a right winger that might want to understand what the left might be doing in the future. So that would be, I guess, my opening disclaimer.
So my opening statement is, as a leftist and progressive, I feel like we should leave the Democratic Party and join third party and support independent candidates in order to achieve our goals better.
Oh yeah, and yeah, I would be arguing for the opposite. I think we can still work within the Democratic Party, and that should be where our efforts are organized. So I guess I'll start with my first contention. Or Vikas, do you want to start?
Yeah. So firstly, Democrats are currently alt-right, and no matter how hard we try, Democrats are shifting right and right economically as we go along the timeline. For example, we saw Joe Biden win over Bernie Sanders, Andrew Yang, and Tulsi Gabbard, clear leftist favorites as opposed to the neoliberal narrative currently pushed by the Democrats. But what do we see? Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, unpopular Kamala Harris, rising to the top of the ranks. So this brings into my mind a few questions. Does the Democratic Party actually care about representing leftist interests, or do they have corporate donors? After doing some further research, I found out that top Democratic Party donors are Michael Bloomberg, Microsoft, and Alphabet, the company that owns Google. So I'm concerned that they've been bought up by corporate interests and thus would want to stay right economically while letting us progressives and leftists down.
All right. So these are all very, very valid criticisms of the Democratic Party, some of which I agree with. However, my response to that, while yes, the Democratic Party is clearly trying to move further and further right, I do think that many of these corporations are corporations that are willing to accept the crumbs that are being basically advocating for by I would say moderate Democrats and more leftist Democrats. For example, Walmart just instituted their $15 minimum wage under pressure by people like Bernie Sanders. So these corporations are making such large profit margins and profiteering so much off of the organization of the economy that we currently live in, that they are actually willing to give us crumbs and allow people who are more moderately left and not strictly Republican left to exist. So they don't really need the Republican Party, and as we see the Republican Party move further and further right into basically like a psychotic state in which brands can't really associate with anymore because they're in further and further coming the party of extreme racism and just crazy QAnon conspiracies where their most far right candidates keep winning. And they're moving the party to where it's not about small government anymore. It's just about exacting cruelty on upon transgender people and messing up liberals and making liberals mad. So I feel like the Republican Party isn't a vehicle which donators can really rely on anymore. And these donators also are able to accept some concessions if they're pushed on it. So they have the ability to bend. And donations are really bad now, but they're not as bad as there's contracts which senators engage in where they absolutely have to do the will of corporations. They will most likely always do. But Democrats are usually not the people who are the stopping point for a lot of more progressive legislation. It's usually Republicans, and when Republicans are the stopgap, that gives Democrats an excuse to go along with it. So I don't think really our main problem is the Democratic Party. I think our main problem and I guess block to more progressivism would be the Republican Party. And once that is eliminated, the Democratic Party will be a more viable option. So I guess what I'm trying to say is right now we need to work within the confines of the Democratic Party to take out the Republican Party, and we can't do that through um, independent action. So I don't think we can pull the Democratic Party left through independent action. We need to destroy the Republican Party, and then we can do what we need to do.
I'm not saying we should move it left. I'm saying we should abandon the Democratic Party in total. So to, I guess, counter some of your points, you mentioned Walmart as an example, right? But we don't know to what extent they're actually influenced by leftist ideas rather than just pandering and virtue signaling. For example, if Walmart was completely invested in this, they're still using slave labor in places like Thailand to get shrimp. They're still utilizing, I guess, right-wing economic policies to meet their needs. Additionally, I mentioned Google and Microsoft. These companies pay barely any taxes. Google is known for dodging taxes whenever possible. So that just shows me that they're not really interested in doing it, and they just want to do what they want to help themselves gain profit. So if they show that, like, okay, I'm giving my employees $15 an hour, so you should shop here, they're going to do whatever. They're going to do whatever it takes to gain market share. And additionally, you said that the Republican Party is getting weaker from just being horrible, just doing Republican stuff. So wouldn't that show that their core followers of poor Southerners, white working class people, wouldn't that show that like they're kind of trotting away from their base? So wouldn't that be perfect for leftists to educate these Southerners? I guess band in a coalition that's like moderate socially, but like left wing economically to, I guess, lift up the country. Maybe that party could rival the Democratic Party, you know? Like a coalition of current white working class Southerners disgruntled by the whatever foibles the Republican Party's doing, and like a coalition of, I guess, leftists like social democrats working together. I think that could oppose the Democratic Party, and we could just let the rotting beast rot.
All right. So I guess I'll tackle the issue head on. Basically, I don't think that independent movement, or no, it's not that I don't think. The data suggests that an independent movement in the United States of America is literally not possible. And no candidate will ever win running as independent for the presidential seat, and simply cannot win. Being an independent will never have enough votes in the two-party system, electoral college system that we have. So under the current state of things, now maybe if we had what's the thing called, Ryan? The voting. I know you know what I'm referring to, right?
Choice.
The what?
Ranked choice voting.
Yeah, ranked choice voting. If we had something like ranked choice voting, something like that, I could see where third-party coalition governments existing like they do in England, being a more viable strategy. But we're very far off from getting there, and we have to motivate political change from within some sort of institution, and that has to be the Democratic Party. Obviously, we can't go with the Republican Party. So we have to get to somewhere where we have ranked choice voting, which we're not going to be able to get there without working through the institutions that currently exist.
Right, but we're seeing that as time goes on, like we're seeing progressives and like independents getting more and more power. For example, in the 2020 presidential election, the Libertarian Party won a certain voting seat in the Midwest. So that just shows that, like, if we make small steps, small baby steps, we can start working and challenging the Democratic Party. Like, all we need is like local elections, move up to state elections, and as soon as we get to like federal representative and state representatives elections, we'll be able to get more independent candidates. Even like we've seen, like Republican candidates are defecting to the Libertarian Party. So I think it's possible that like left-wing Democrats could defect to their own parties, you know, like new leftist parties. And
all right, so I'm glad you bring up the Libertarian Party. The Libertarian Party, as we all know, while has been gaining in popularity, has acted as a large spoiler for the Republican Party, and had everybody who voted Libertarian voted Republican. In Georgia, Georgia would have flipped to the Republicans. So that's just an example of the Libertarian Party acting as a spoiler to Republican efforts to take seats in government. So if we do launch an independent movement, I would expect it to be more popular than the Libertarian movement, basically acting as an even greater spoiler than Libertarians do for Republicans. So I would expect it to be a greater spoiler effect, but not anywhere within the realm of actually causing any sort of political change. In fact, I believe that Democrats can be fairly easily bended to our will, and we've seen people like Bernie and AOC take greater and greater importance in the party simply because of their outstanding popularity and the outstanding popularity of leftist ideas. So we see people like Bernie and AOC, their platforms and their ideas take greater and greater hold. When Biden's campaign said this is the most progressive campaign anybody's ever run on, they were right. What Biden actually promised was pretty good. Honestly, if he did everything he said he was, I would be ecstatic. He's obviously not doing anywhere close to that. We see him defaulting on most of his promises already. But Biden did actually run on a lot of these ideas, and these Democrats, they know that these ideas are successful. They just don't want to implement them because they'll be too hard with a Republican caucus that we could not dismantle through an independent party, because we wouldn't get enough votes to be in Congress. And even if we were in Congress, we wouldn't have enough Congress people to actually act as a spoiler effect. However, we do have a large caucus of, the Justice Dems, as they might call themselves. We have the Squad and stuff like that. And those people, for example, 20 members of the House, or I think it was of the House or the Senate, one of the two, 20 members signed a letter to Biden asking him to please go and campaign for the $15 minimum wage. Please go find 10 senators that would be willing to get, 10 Republican senators that would be willing to break the vote and carry them to 60 votes that might vote for the minimum wage, $15 minimum wage. Had they actually refused to vote and sent it back to the House to be redone, they wouldn't have enough votes. Or I think it was the House. If they had not voted and forced them to rewrite the legislation to include the $15 minimum wage, it probably would have worked. Now that would carry a lot of significant political baggage, which is why I assume they didn't do that. But we do have the ability from within the Democratic Party to affect a significant change. And while I do understand, I just said they had significant political baggage, that this unpopularity within the Democratic Party can be overcome by popular support and primarying any candidate that speaks out against the Justice Dems, until the Democratic Party itself will start to respect and recognize the Justice Dems as a significant force. And without the Republican Party, the Justice Dems can take greater risks that they weren't able to before, because this constant fear of having to unify against the Republicans, where we have center and alt-right Democrats saying, please just work with us, compromise on literally everything you want, because we have to defeat XY Republican. So we have to work to defeat the Republicans, and then we will be able to work through the Democratic institution to take control of the Democratic Party. And then once we have enough control, then we can start. Then we can pass through ranked choice voting, and then we can form other parties.
So number one, like you mentioned, Bernie Sanders is a Democrat. Currently, he's actually an independent politician. He's not a Democrat anymore as of right now. And also, we've seen Republicans like Justin Amash, know him? He deserted his party, joined the Libertarian Party. I'm saying that these people like the Squad, who are fed up with Nancy Pelosi always shutting them down, not listening to demands. They should form their own political party. I think it's entirely possible something along those lines could happen. And so you mentioned that alt-right Democrats are trying to coalesce with lib-left Democrats to oppose Republican Party, and that the lib-left Democrats will eventually use that momentum to push their ideologies. but we've never seen that happening at all. Like whenever AOC does something, like Nancy's always ready to buck her and like get her down. Like we're always like seeing something bad going on. Like we're not seeing the lib left able to take on the alt-right Democrats and get what they want.
Yes, we're not seeing that because the need to unify against the Republican Party is much greater. But we need to take out the Republican Party, and we can't do that from a third party. Well, you mentioned Bernie Sanders is a currently registered independent. He's incredibly well loved by his community, and his community is his area around him is very safe. In fact, I don't really know if he was very contested when he ran. So he might have the liberty of running as an independent, but he even recognizes that, he ran as a Democrat during the presidential primary twice. After getting shafted in 2016, he ran again in 2020 as a Democrat because he knew he could not possibly win any sort of presidential ticket as a independent. It just would not work out. When you go to vote, you have to be able to see their name on the ballot. And that means that you have to be part of the two major parties. That's just how the system has to mathematically work. And I don't see any way other than working through the Democratic Party to take out the Republican Party.
Right, the Republican Party, so it's already on its like last legs. They're moving away from small government. They can't stand it anymore. Then there's going to be the Patriot Party and the Libertarian Party, which is like going to take away from their votes. So it's a perfect time to get disgruntled people to join. And then like AOC can desert, right? Like she's well loved in her district, so she can desert. Someone like Ilhan, who's got Minnesota sealed, if she wants, she can desert too. There's a lot of people that can desert, and it's all obvious that like if you want to leave, you can make that choice. So what we see in the DNC is it's good that we have candidates like Yang and Tulsi and Bernie running, but look at what happened. We eventually end up with Kamala. That shows that we don't have all the power in the Democratic Party. Democratic Party is still held by Tom Perez, who is bought out by corporate interests, in my opinion. And these corporate interests still run rampant through the Democrat Party's veins. So it's hard to change what's in the lifeblood of that party by a few candidates whose voices aren't even being heard, as like we see unpopular corporate candidates getting hoisted up.
Well, I entirely agree with you that it is very difficult to affect actual progressive change within the Democratic Party due to their corporate interests, and their interests will always be aligned with corporate interests, which is why eventually a third party will be necessary. At this point, we can't have everybody abandon the Democratic Party because that will likely result in, if we get enough people to leave, it will likely result in a spoiler effect where the new Progressive Party and the Democratic Party lose to Republicans, or we see the Progressive Party not win, and they generally fall into irrelevancy because if you make yourself a Democrat, you get the screen time from the news. You can't, if you're just Joe Schmo running as an independent, you're not going to get that same screen time. You're not going to get that same force of institutions that the Democrats can run behind candidates if they so choose. While maybe they might not choose for progressive people because they don't want these progressive people in office. Biden, the left has caused Biden to do a lot of things that I doubt he would have done if he had no other influence. So honestly, it's really down to how hard we can primary non-progressive Democrats and how hard we can convince Democrats to adopt progressive legislation. They are willing to do it to a certain extent, and to an extent that is enough, I think, to eventually get to a state where we can pass through ranked choice voting, which should be the eventual goal if you want to dissolve the two-party state. But so we can do enough change to get there, in my opinion. But in this stage, abandoning the Democratic Party would result either in the complete loss of the progressive cause, and or it would result in the loss of the neoliberal and progressive cause to the Republicans, who are not weak; they are just on the downhill.
So basically, to get this right, we had the same goals. We both want dismantling a two-party system, and we want a third party, but we're disagreeing on how to get to it. Whereas you say we should stick with Democrats, work through them to make this third party happen. Whereas I'm saying we should split right. We should split in the meantime. So I would agree with your thing if there's only going to be three factions running like that, the Republicans would win. But now, like, the Republican Party's on its high knees, right? Like, there's gonna be hypothetically, if the split happened, there would be five factions, right? There would be the Patriot Party, there'd be the Libertarians, Republicans, Democrats, and like this new left-wing former Democrat faction, right? So if it's five, I think we have enough even chance to take over more power. But like, because like that's what we're seeing right now, right? Like, Republicans are just going downhill overall. Like, Republican strongholds are deteriorating.
Well, yes, progressive Democrats are weakening Republican strongholds such as Texas, and Republicans are nearly losing through their, sheer own incompetence, and they are moving towards a party position that will eventually cause them to lose, and I hope they continue to do that. And Democrats are, have an amazing chance to, absolutely kill the Republican Party, which they're not taking, unfortunately, but while the Republican Party may be on the downhill, they're still a huge institution. Trump has came out and said he's not going to form the Patriot Party. He even laughed at the idea that it would be ridiculous to do that. Republicans in 2020 voted 97% Trump. They are wholly unified in their they are entirely unified. Make no mistake, they will vote for one candidate once they get past the primaries, which it doesn't matter in terms of Democrat Republican balance. Once they get past the primaries, they will entirely unify beyond whatever psychotic leader they choose that time, and they will unify. History has told us this. Whereas Democrats might actually not. Democrats are more susceptible to not unifying and causing a spoiler effect. We've seen that throughout the recent years. So I would argue like we are more at threat.
The thing is, Trump is more marketable. Like, next time, I don't think Republicans will be able to find a Trump. Like, Trump is like a diamond in the rough. They're able to exploit. Like, I don't think they'll be able to find that. Look at like Rand Paul and like what movement he's going in. Then you have something like DeSantis, who's moving in a different direction. And then you have Donald Trump Jr. I don't know if you know, Senior might be like scoffing at it, but like, if you look at Jr., he's fed up with the Republicans too. He's saying that like Republicans are bad as Democrats. So Junior's having his own disgruntled feelings. So you might see something going on. Like, I think it's gonna be like much more bigger than two parties next election. So I think like if we capitalize on that moment, like we could start making some ground. We could start breaking ground. Like, if we start educating, I guess, a target demographic on leftist ideologies, and we get like a few people like maybe Yang, Bernie.
Okay. But why couldn't we educate these people on leftist ideology and then allow them to primary more conservative Democrats and then put more leftist Democrats in power? But I want to respond to your point that you don't think there's going to be more parties. The Republicans have made it clear, absolutely clear, painfully clear, that they do not care how far right they go. They literally have no qualms about becoming the party of Marjorie Taylor Greene. They have made no effort to attack her anyway, condemn what she's saying, all the ridiculous Jewish space leaders and stuff like that. They've provided absolutely no comment. During, after the Trump's insurrection, they had the golden opportunity to say, we're not the party of Trump anymore. We disavowed this guy. We're going to vote to impeach. They had the best possible excuse. They could say, you know what? It's been 4 years. We went down that road and we decided it's not for us. We're not that party. We are not the party of, racist, crazy hogs that are apparently now going to be storming the Capitol if they don't like the vote result. We are not that party. They have the golden opportunity to say that. And they said, nah. We're, actually, Joe Biden is not the real president. That's what we're going to focus on. Trump totally should not be impeached. And we're going to try and, in fact, impeach Joe Biden. We're gonna impeach Joe Biden. So they clearly have no qualms about going further and further right and staying within the party. There's absolutely no need for anybody to form any third party in the Republican base. They can, agitate as much as they want, and the Republicans will go farther and farther right with them.
All right. So basically, to respond to a few of your points, you asked why Southerners and working class people would vote for conservative Democrats. So I guess like what TYV should do is we should take a trip out to, I guess, one of these places, right? Like Andrew Yang said himself. He said that like when he was campaigning in Iowa, the Democrat Party, like the name itself, is like so soiled in those areas. It's hard to like sell the idea of a Democrat Party back to them because like they said that the Democratic Party has failed on multiple occasions.
Bernie Sanders destroyed in Iowa, overwhelmingly won during his primary, killing Biden. And the people of Iowa were elated to elect somebody like Bernie, who was working within the confines of the Democratic Party. So
yeah, so Bernie, right? Like if Bernie can split, he takes Iowa with him. Like we can just do that with multiple times. Like you just proved my point. Like the current authority.
Yeah, Bernie was running under the Democratic Party. You just said the name of the Democratic Party is so soiled that nobody will vote for it.
Right, but there is few Democrats in Iowa, right? Those Democrats in Iowa are leftists. They aren't liberals. They're just leftists who don't have any output. So they just vote Democrat for Bernie. But if Bernie splits, he takes the Iowa Democrat vote with him, right? And then like he could use that. And if you've seen like most conservative Republicans in the South, they have a more favorable view of Bernie and Yang than they do have Biden. What does that show you? Like it shows you that leftist ideas can work. They can be implemented.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree that leftist ideas are the more popular one, but they're not popular enough to form a whole new party around, in my opinion.
Maybe not a party, but we could definitely get a few defectors, right? Like you could have like one or two defect, and we could cause a chain reaction, a domino effect.
No, we're not going to have domino effect because I'll tell you what's going to happen. We're going to get those few people. There's 4 people. Then they're going to go from Democrats to independent, and then they're gonna destroy their political careers, and then nobody's going to want to do that. Nobody.
Right, but
nobody's going to follow.
But Bernie's like an example. We should be holding him as an example to like all of us. Like maybe that like within your local level, not like maybe not president yet, but like local level, you can start defecting. You can start going independent if you need to.
Okay.
Like someone like AOC, do you think? I think AOC has Bronx unlocked. Does she or how's the district?
I mean, she's under heavy attack from Republicans, extremely heavy, and then and if she left, then she would be under heavy attack from Democrats. All that's keeping Democrats from like absolutely annihilating her at every turn, which they already kind of are, is the fact that she's part of their own party and they can't criticize themselves. That's the only thing saving her. So if we broke away, we would be fighting not only the Republican Party but the Democratic Party. We need to take one of those out of the equation, and we need to pass some sort of voter reform, whether that be the ranked choice voting, or maybe just even like universal mail-in ballot voting, where we have everybody voting. So our more populist measures will work, even better than they are right now. But Bernie worked for so many years in the confines of the Democratic Party to finally go to independent. It didn't just happen overnight, which is what I'm suggesting to do. Obviously, the end goal isn't to stay in the Democratic Party forever, but it took him so many years to build up to the ability to register as independent.
Right, maybe not AOC, someone like Ilhan. Like I know, like Ilhan's district, she's gonna win Minneapolis either way. Because you know why? Because she has the connections. Her district's largely Muslim. She's got the connections there. So if she can defect, we can start a chain reaction. If Ilhan leaves, someone like Ayana might leave. Someone else like Rashida might leave. Start like a reaction.
But they're not going to leave once they see Ilhan's whole political career get destroyed as she gets piled on by like literally every other single party. And then the people who are registered as Democrat, maybe if all our best progressives leave, the Democratic Party, maybe the Democratic Party might take notice and start fielding more moderate people to act against the super progressive Democrats that are now leaving. So now maybe the Democratic Party might be moved left, but we're going to sacrifice all of our best progressives to move the Democratic Party a little bit left for a couple elections, and then they're going to move back to right once they have again secured their like homogeny, I guess.
So basically,
okay, wait, real quick.
I'll get back to that point, but we have a few questions in the chat. So this is from
here. I'm gonna read it because I'm the moderator.
Go on.
Vikaas.
All right.
So Rashab says, I don't know if this has been addressed yet, but progressive parties have been established in the past in the face of a two-party system. What's different now?
So the question is, so progressive parties have been established in the past in the face of a two-party system. What's different now? What's different now is more and more people are getting fed up with the Democratic Party. It's kind of weak. We're seeing how ineffective it is. Before, the Democratic Party was able to market itself as kind of strong and for the working man, but we've seen that shift, and that's like what's different now. And again, in terms of the Republican Party, we've seen them as like being small government, as they claim, but like that's not working anymore. Like they're just autocrats now. So that's what's changed right now. So I'm thinking using that change, we could capitalize off it. Like it'll be a perfect time to move. Like currently, the masses are fed up with Biden. Look how long it took for stimulus, and then no one liked Kamala in general. So it just shows that like if we switch right now, we can go on.
But wouldn't all your answers also apply to the idea that maybe we should be moving the Democratic Party left, and fielding progressives within the Democratic Party, in order to win and win and win and win and continue winning and absolutely destroy all Republican chances of being like a substantial party in America. If we did that, then the vacuum for a second party would open up at that point, but we can't make a third party. So my suggestion would be, yes, what you're saying, we should do exactly that, but we should do it within the confines of the Democratic Party for the next 30 years, or maybe 20 years, maybe 10 years. I don't know how long it's going to take, but we should do that for a while until the Republican Party no longer exists, and then we start a progressive party. For the second party, and then once we have that progressive party, then we can start passing basically anything we wanted.
Right, but do you think we could actually work through the Democratic Party? I said that like in the lifeblood itself, it's just corporate interests. Like we can't work through corporate interests. It's hard, America is founded on corporate interests, like not America itself, but like policy the past 100 years is founded on corporate interests. Like that's what we've been working on recently, That's what's always been happening. How are we going to go against that with a few
corporate interests are extremely hard to get around. Although right now we are in a unique position where Republicans and Democrats have polarized themselves so much, and with Trump as well, we've had more class consciousness building up among Republican voters, ironically. Now they are polarized so much that, I would find it unlikely, or not unlikely, but they would find it very difficult to unite against a growing progressive movement within the Democratic caucus, and because of Trump spouting his fake populism, that would not only mean that if we have more progressive candidates starting to pop up in primaries against Democratic candidates, that maybe we'll weaken the Republican Party as we're doing it. So I think if we work through the Democratic Party, which has shown that we're able to bend as long as we get the votes. If we demonstrate that leftist ideas are popular, and they are, and it's already been demonstrated, we can bend the Democratic Party into at least pretending that they're more progressive than they are. And as long as they just pretend, then they'll start winning, and they'll start winning more, and they'll start beating Republicans. And then once they realize that they're winning, they might just maybe decide to actually continue it too. And that's the only way I think we can, defeat the Republicans.
Right, but even if we have a growing interest, so would you say that the progressive movement in the Democratic Party is growing or waning? What's your take?
Growing, absolutely growing. Every year we see more social democrats getting more and more seats, local legislators, state legislators, and Congress too. Every year we see more progressives able to work within the Democratic Party. While it is difficult, they're able to do it. And while it may take longer, it is the only thing that will be able to work. I agree. I can emphasize with your points. We're in a point where either we have to work through the Democratic Party, and there's the challenge of these corporate interests, which will never ever bend to our will. They just won't. It's not within their interests in the way that we want them to. Or we face total political annihilation by going through by trying to be independents, more progressives. So my proposed solution is that maybe we combine those two ideas in order to move the Democratic Party left enough that while in the process we can get rid of the Republican Party, and then move like the general American populace to get used to electing people who are progressive. And then at that point, we can just say, all right, you're used to electing people who are progressive. It's going well. How about we do more progressive in this party? And then, at that point, it'll be, Republicans will be getting like 20% of the vote. Democrats will be getting 80% of the vote. Now we just split and we get, now we get 40% of the vote. Democrats get, 30%. Republicans get 20%. I don't know if that math works out to 100, but we'll lose the first couple of elections, but then we'll start to win by a tremendous amount.
Right, but Joe's not getting influence at all. Like, we're always going to see Joe and Kamala and like people like those that are chosen by Democratic Party's nominees. And then even in House, we have Nancy Pelosi. She's like the queen. She never goes away. She's always there. She's always going to back her corporate interests. Like, we're not going to get anything new like with Pelosi and like people like Joe and Kamala always in charge. Like, Pelosi's not stepping out anytime soon, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah, but they are only going to be in charge for so long until they get primaried, or frankly they they get primaried, or frankly they die off. Because I mean, let's be honest, these people are like 110 years old. All right, they're like getting sneezed on a whiff away from like literally crumbling.
Not soon. Like, Pelosi's like 85. She's not.
She like Pelosi, all right, if I read the news right now that she like dropped dead when like somebody sneezed on her, I would not be surprised whatsoever.
No, dude,
she is a walking skeleton behind all that plastic surgery and hairdos that she's breaking COVID regulations to get it. She is a skeleton.
No, she's not. She's like the queen, like Prince Philip. That guy's like a walking skeleton. She's still around. Like, that's Nancy Pelosi, man. Like, she's not gonna step out anytime soon at all. Like, she just has something.
But they will eventually. And while it may be frustrating that we have to do this slowly, we do have to win, and that requires us to be patient and wait for the political revolution that is coming when this huge power vacuum happens, when all the more elderly people unfortunately start to die off, and we see this huge power vacuum where we have one millennial in the entire Senate that was just elected just this year. So we have one millennial, and the rest of them are literally all Gen X or boomers. All right. And we're going to see as the older voters and the older politicians start to unfortunately pass away, we're going to see this huge power vacuum where Gen Z, the young voters, and millennials, and to a greater extent, Gen X, are going to be able to start voting in the progressive candidates that they overwhelmingly demographically support. And that's going to be within the Democratic Party. That's going to have to be where it is. And we're going to be able to move the Democratic Party a little bit more left. Because honestly, yes, I agree that, if the Democratic Party had their way, people like AOC would not be part of it. But she's had so much support. She's had so much support from the populace. We were able to maintain her existence within the party. And the greater influx of voters that is coming soon will dramatically expand the support, so we can start electing a even larger and larger progressive caucus until the point where we've moved the Democratic Party left enough and we've gotten rid of the Republican Party left enough in order to start a third party.
Right,
which is eventually.
But thing is, right, like, so even if we have Pelosi and Joe Biden are like dinosaurs, we still have Kamala, who's a Gen X, and like Kamala will take her own like proteges. It's gonna keep on going. That's how it's been since like Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton has his protege. Then they like keep on transferring like that. So like Gen X is pretty authoritative in my opinion too. Elizabeth Warren, how old is she?
I mean, Elizabeth Warren is fairly progressive, more progressive than Yang and Tulsi. So.
Nah, I think
I don't agree with your assessments of Yang, but we'll leave that to a different thing. Ryan, do we have any other questions from the chat? Corey said Liz Warren is 71 years old. So.
Oh, nice to know.
There's not really many other questions from the chat at this moment.
Go ahead and ask your questions, everybody. Vikaas, do you have anything to say to me, I guess?
No. I mean, but I still think we could still split away, like we could split and it could make an impact.
Do you have any data to suggest that? Because everything I've seen has been to the contrary, that we couldn't have that happen.
Right, but we don't have any data to back it up because we've never seen anything along these lines happen before. But I guess we give it a shot. Like we've seen Bernie. Bernie's been successful even after he split away. What? Like Ilhan could do that. Like she has her place on lock. Like anything could happen along those lines.
All right, so you want to stake the entire future of the progressive movement on the chance that we might have a shot?
Yes.
Because if this goes wrong, this will mean that Republicans take control and alt-right Democrats take control for the foreseeable future. They will always use this. They will say progressives aren't electable, blah, blah, blah. You're not the future. Shut up. Take a seat. You're not even elected. Shut up. Go away. And we're going to get ignored. And they're going to take control. They're going to take this power vacuum that all the progressives are going to, they're going to lose their power. And this power vacuum will only be filled by more and more right-wing alt-right Democrats and Republicans eventually. So this will literally end the entire progressive movement, set it back by like 80 years, which at that point, it will be like entirely ineffective and won't be able to save us from like the impending doom.
But when have progressives ever got into foreseeable power? Like, always from the beginning, we've always seen fear mongering. Like even the Democratic Party's been fear mongering about these progressives, but it's not going to change anytime soon. So like, if we make a decision, like they'll still say the same.
No, they're fear mongering about progressives within the Democratic Party. They're not fear mongering about independence. The reason that they're not even fear mongering because they recognize it's not a threat. Independents aren't a threat to them. They never will be within the laws that we have in this nation.
Yes,
and those laws will never be changed unless we have a progressive movement within the Democratic Party to write those laws, because alt-right Democrats and Republicans will never choose to give up their power, and we can't make them if we're not in power.
Right. Like, Corey brings up a point in the chat. He said that senators like John Thune is 60 and that they're still going to continue establishment traditions. Like establishment versus anti-establishment isn't something new, and it's not going to change overnight without some radical change. That's what history has taught us. Like this radical step I'm taking is leave the Democratic Party. Like we can't just make moderate baby steps within to, I guess, meet our goals.
All right, Ryan, I think Caleb has a question, but of course, yes, radical change is needed within the Democratic Party, but it has to be within the Democratic Party in order to win. We're going to primary these people when Gen Z starts voting and when millennials, I guess, start caring enough to vote. We are going to annihilate these people based off of the demographics, but it won't be through third party. I mean, the Young Voters is literally founded on the principle that not enough young people care enough to vote. And if you make it that they're not even young people don't even care enough to figure out who the main political candidates are,
yeah, but the thing is, that's the point.
We're lucky if they knew who Trump and Biden were. All right. They're not gonna research Tulsi Gabbard's entire platform position and be like, this Trump guy brings up a lot of interesting points. All right, because most people aren't young voters, readers, and watchers, and thank you all. But most people aren't young voters, readers, and watchers. They're just gonna see Democrat or Republican, and they're gonna vote one of the two, and they're gonna, do it by what they associate with each platform. And I believe that the Republican Party is going downhill, and we have a fantastic chance to reform the Democratic Party into being even better. So they're gonna choose one of the boxes. They're not gonna kids these days are too lazy to scroll down beyond the first two options.
Right, but thing is, right, so these kids are dumb though, nowadays. They don't have any critical thinking. They just do whatever the establishment tells them. That's what so many of the Gen Z people who I know voted are pro Kamala and pro Joe and wouldn't even consider voting for someone like Tulsi. It just shows that they don't know the establishment. So we need to show them the way out, Without seeing any things, they wouldn't learn to research platforms. Unless we make some big news headlines, they'll just read whatever someone's feeding to them.
Okay. And how did you come about this information? Like, how did you came about, who did you see that were advocating for these ideas? Was it Howie Hawkins, or was it people like, I guess, Yang, because you like Yang, and Tulsi and Bernie that were yeah.
All right, here, let me ask questions real quick. The crowd's been waiting. All right, so Corey says, also, I think the point that people will age out is kind of dumb. Senators like John Thurn are 60 and they're the future of the establishment.
Yeah, we covered that, I think, right?
Right, it was just getting back to mention it. And he also said by the time Gen Z is a considerable force, the millennials will be more centrist and Gen X will be more conservative. The boomers were huge liberals back in the 60s, and look at them now.
I mean, but like liberal is still part of establishment. It just means you're open to more things. You're just still liberal and conservative are still the same side of the same coin, you know? It's not anything new. Like that just shows Democrat and Republican Party. Like unless we make something huge change, it'll always stay Democrat and Republican. Like right now is the best bet we have, right? Like to break apart. Like everything is weak. Like American politics is at like its, I guess, weakest point. Like there's no stronghold on anything right now. Right now is the perfect time to make any choice because like in the future, the Republicans will bring their DeSantis boy along. They'll bring like Libertarians. What am I saying? Donald Trump Jr. will get into power. We'll get those guys in.
What do you mean, like in the future? This is like in the next 4 years.
Yeah,
right? Donald Trump is going to run and win again in the next 4 years. 4 years is not enough time to start a new party. Like,
we don't need to start a new party, but like, actually, it is. Like, I think like if you're gonna be able to run on like if someone like Donald Trump Jr. is able to run on his own party, it's a decent amount of time to start a new party, right? I'm not saying that we should start a party right now, but like, we can start defecting. We can start influencing defecting people. We've seen Justin Amash do it. We've seen Bernie go independent. Like defecting is a possibility. We could see people defect like right and left. We see people flip flop. So like, why not just like get off completely?
Here, can I ask a question real quick from the chat? I'd like to pose the question. I'm sorry, this is from Shab. I'd like to pose the question: what do you feel is the most prominent issue that can tell a lib from a lefty?
A lib is just someone who's obsessed with like God knows what. They're obsessed with the most trivial issues, and they don't care about real issues. They're still economically alt-right. They're still authoritarian. They still want right-wing economics, but they're like can't. But they're the type of people who cancel you over like having an opinion. And lefties,
I disagree on that. I think most people support the stimulus and checks and stuff. It's actually kind of hard to like. I mean, those are like Congress people, yeah, but like the real liberals, like actually. Before they're told what to believe by CNN, they will support a lot of similar positions to lefties. I would say guns,
yes,
which is a position that like a lot of. I mean, I guess this is off topic, but this is like even before hearing what Democratic leadership has to say, most liberals will be anti-gun because it's been ingrained for so long.
And like leftism, like I guess modern leftism in nature is kind of like more pro-gun. Like we want to be equipped because we know the system can't do anything. So according to Justin Amash left Congress, his political career is over.
Who's that?
Justin Amash.
Like is that he's a libertarian? Yeah, okay, he was a libertarian.
Like Republican turned libertarian.
Yeah, so that like disproves your point, I guess, that independence would be able.
Right, but he's the only one who did that. Like if we maybe had like a big push, we could maybe change something because like America, like back then, like
that's literally just evidence that it didn't work.
Right, but like back at that point, like we need, but like politics like a changing thing. It's sort of like a wave, you know. Back then, like it was Trump was in the mud.
And you mean back then? His career just ended. He left this year.
Right, but like his career, but this shift was made like back when the Republicans, back when the impeachment happened. I think he shifted during the impeachment trials, right?
What? Okay, Vikaas. Politics takes time, all right? We're not going to be able to do anything within 6 months. We're not going to be able to do... Ryan, can you get that? All right. We're not going to be able to... 6 months is not enough time. A year is not enough time. 4 years is not enough time. 10 years maybe might be enough time to do some small things. But if we want a new party, that's going to take like 30 years until like we maybe get like 10% vote. All right, maybe. And my solution maybe might take 40 years, but at least it'll guarantee that we do take power as long as we're able to take triumphs that are probably easier than starting a whole new party.
Well, who do you propose that can go against this grain? Like, who do you think will be the one to shift in the Democratic Party? Like, we're not seeing anything shifting. Like, we're still seeing.
What do you mean we're not seeing anything shift? What Biden ran on he was correct, literally the most progressive platform ever. So what do you mean? We had 20 people that suggested they might be willing to veto the stimulus if the $15 minimum wage wasn't included. They ended up not doing it. But
Biden ran on a progressive scheme, but he didn't deliver. But that shows that there's progressive voters out there, right?
Yeah, that's exactly. That just shows that there's a progressive caucus waiting to be harnessed. And there's
get off the Democratic Party and we can harness political progressive caucus on our own, right?
No, because these people, there's a lot of liberals who will get radicalized into being there's a lot of there's a lot of liberals who get radicalized into being progressives through the Democratic Party messaging, okay? And this happens through that. But if you have independents, people just don't focus on independence. People don't watch coverage on independence. Chat, do you know who Holly Hawkins is? Tell me. What party is he from? Nobody knows. Nobody cares. And the data suggests this, and you really haven't brought up any claims to support it. You just said maybe we might take a chance, we might win. But I'm not willing to stake the future of the American conservative movement and basically our nation's and our world's basically future on the chance that Vikaas says might be true, but hasn't provided any data to support.
Okay, can we just clarify real quick for one of our audience members? What is a caucus?
Vikaas, you want to take this one?
I'm good.
Okay. All right. Let me get you the dictionary definition. A conference of members of a legislative body who belong to a particular party or faction is your dictionary definition there. Basically a group of voters or a group of politicians who say, I am a Justice Dem and I will vote how the Justice Dems vote. Yeah.
So, all right. So I guess I kind of want to end off on a solution, like middle ground.
Sure.
All right. So you're saying that like, how long do you think we should work in the Democratic Party? Like, I'm saying like, I think we should like maybe do it soon. But like, if sometimes what it takes, I'll be willing to take that time. How long would you say is good enough to maybe enact a few changes and then break off?
I haven't got my degree yet, so take this with a grain of salt. But I would say anywhere from 20 to 40 years. I don't know.
20 to 40 years.
Yeah, which in the grand scheme of things is not very long. I mean, the Republican and Democratic Party have been the two main parties for like 150 years now. So, and keep in mind, throughout this entire time, this would literally mean that the Republican Party is non-existent and the Democratic Party is moved a lot farther left towards being more centrist, like really centrist, actually centrist. And then we have like a literal socialist party, as the second party.
I mean, 20 to 40 years, still a long time, But like, that's what you're saying. That's how long it's going to take to go against the grain and beat all corporate interests. Like, are you saying it's going to take 20 to 40 years? Like,
no, that's not going to happen. Let me be clear. We're not going to eliminate corporate interests. We're not going to get the Democrats to, within the next 20 years, to pass something that says no corporate funding. That's why so many people united against Bernie. It's just not going to happen. It's not within their nature. That will be up to a progressive party to do. That's not going to happen. But if we wanted to form another party, that would easily take 30 years until we get like 10% vote. But if we take this slower and different approach, as long as we're lucky, 20 to 40 years, and then once that happens, we can right away, just like that, it'll take us about 5 years to form a new party. And then once we form a new party, boom, third party voting. That'll probably be like one of the first things.
So here's my plan. So in the primaries and stuff, we vote in Democratic, but very like more left-leaning, populist politicians, right? Like we'll vote that like in the thing, and we'll try to do that in presidential election. So after we do that, we pressure our more populist people to leave the corporate Democratic Party, like maybe 5-10 years after we elect them in. Do you think that would work, or do you think we still need more time? Or
I think that timeline would have to be expanded, but yeah, essentially that's the plan. We elect progressive candidates, which will, in the meantime, pass progressive policies and work towards annihilating the Republican Party. Throughout, and then with the Democrats now becoming more and more of a symbol of progressive policy, which is ultimately will win more voters. So we annihilate the Republican Party. We're passing more progressive legislation, which given might be enough for some people. And we're talking like $15 minimum wage. We're talking Green New Deal. We're talking all that type of stuff, because this is stuff that while corporations might resist, they will always take, they'll always say, sure, we'll give you a Green New Deal. Totally. Because the alternative is that we say, no, we're doing a socialist party now. You know what? We were previously arguing, you have to pay 10% more taxes. All right, now you're going to be paying 90% more taxes. How do you like that? That's what it's going to be. But we have to take that time to establish that system. Otherwise it's not going to work. If we form a third party, we're going to sabotage ourselves. We're going to potentially ruin the entire progressive movement, or it's going to take like 30 years. Which might be a little bit longer, might be a little bit shorter than what the alternative might be.
I'll probably just take 20 years. Maybe I'll just have to like go against my gut and vote Democrat progressives, and maybe. But what incentive? But let's say if we keep voting Democrat progressive, what incentive is there for them to leave, right?
What do you mean?
Like, let's say we keep on voting these progressive candidates as part of the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
Why would they leave? Like. Then when they should, then rather than like now, like what incentive would they have then to leave?
Because then there's going to be, it's going to be technically a two-party, but it's going to really be one party where we have the Democrats and we have the Justice Dems Democrats, and then we have the Republicans in the corner trying to, adopt like small government stuff. But like, let me be clear, getting Republicans out of government, that would be huge. That is literally would probably be like our generation's last work for most of the points in which we're within political relevance. That's a monumental task, which just can't happen overnight. But we're gonna have at that point we're gonna have the Justice Dems and the center Dems now, because they won't be off-right anymore. They have to be center Dems. Otherwise, they're just going to get instantly primaried. Then the incentive for the Justice Dems to leave is that, like for the past 40 years, the farther left you go, the more likelihood of the chance that you get voted in. So at that point, they can choose that, if they want to win more elections, they can choose to go farther left if they may choose to. But in my opinion, if we got rid of the if we got rid of the Republicans and move Democrats to center Democrats, and then the Justice Dems just broke off into just the Justice Dems party, and they don't even have to move farther left, I think that would be just good enough, in my opinion.
Well,
I'd be satisfied. Corey's
asking me what is my opinion on Ross Perot and his campaigns. I mean, I don't like his policies because he's like a conservative, right? Like I don't like his policies, but I respect how he's able to go against the two-party establishment and get like a decent amount of popular vote. So like, I think I appreciate a few of his contributions here and there, Yeah,
but didn't he lose?
He lost, but like, I liked how he was able to take that stand and go against the grain and show that maybe third party could be a viable option.
But it's not a viable option. He just lost.
But still, that's a decent amount of votes, right? Like he single-handedly got Bill Clinton elected, I'm pretty sure, like because he was able to take that much Republican vote. I think it shows that like
Okay, so you're saying if we ran independents, like we would act as a spoiler option that would allow Republicans to gain power.
no, I would say that like what we should do is we should make us like we're libertarian left, right? Like
Yeah.
both of us. So I'm thinking that we should like work with our libertarian right people. We should get them to make their own spoiler option to Republicans because both of us hate the status quo. Both of us hate the two-party system. So I would probably tell them to I guess build up their libertarian party while we create a spoiler for our Democrat party. Like we create that.
All right. Well, I'm not inclined to believe that Republicans will have the same spoiler effect. They won't just create their second party if we do. I think, in fact, they would rejoice and unite in one party while we lose in two parties. But I think we should probably wrap up because it's hit about an hour.
Like Republican voters, like there's more libertarian leaning Republican voters, right?
No, they're not. And they've shown that they'll unite. They'll unite. 97% Republicans voted Trump last year, so they'll say that they'll unite even if they don't agree with Trump.
All right. So, should we just like wrap up with like closing statements from both?
Yeah,
of you?
sure.
Maybe let's have conversations.
So let's start with Vikaas's closing statement. Then
all right. So after like hearing Nico out, I was saying that we should stick with the Democratic Party for a little bit, and then let's say if things don't go our way, or like if things are going our way, we split.
Yeah, I think I'm yeah, that'd probably be my proposed solution. Yeah, that would be my proposed solution would be, I want to have an independent party, and I want to most of all the points Vikaas raised were fantastic. They all made sense, and they were all backed up by things. But then he made a lot of claims that I just haven't seen any data for. So that's why I can't support an immediate independent party. But I do want a strategy that we get towards a two-party system. But at this point, we have Dems and Justice Dems. And then the Justice Dems can write legislation to allow for multiple party system.
I feel like more than two parties. I want like multiple party system, but
yeah, no. Yeah, I want a multiple party system, but like two party, and then the Justice Dems are gonna write allowing for multiple party system.
Yeah. Let's. Oh, you mean like right after we like destroy the Republicans? Yeah.
We're gonna destroy the Republicans, and then Justice Dems run. They run on a platform saying if we get in, we're gonna make ranked choice voting a thing.
Right. So while this is going on, I would suggest like we should work with the Libertarian Party to get like more lib rights onto their side. Like because Gen Z, right, we're split amongst conservatives and I guess liberals and leftists. So I'm saying that like we should work with the Libertarian Party to catch the conservative Gen Z on their side, and then maybe we could like make more changes. That like be a catalyst, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be open to that. But I'm happy we were able to find common ground and able to have Unity Jack.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, we found Unity Jack.
That's
so
such a great thing to have.
All you neolib centrists should be incredibly satisfied by this debate. This should be just the premium stuff.
And look, right? I got you, man. Like I got you. We're gonna bring you more voters, but only because it benefits us.
Yes, exactly.
There's so much unity now. It's amazing. Anyway, I'd like to thank everybody who came out to this debate. It went well, went on for a while. We had some good points made from both sides. We achieved unity. All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
Thank you, Vikaas. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Vikaas. Thank you, Nico.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Nico. Thanks for Nico.
And thank you, young voters, for watching. Make sure to check out the Discord link in the description. Make sure to subscribe to your YouTube channel. Make sure to like the video. Make sure to find your entire family, hold them at gunpoint until they subscribe to Young Voters. And then
make sure to follow Vikaas's OnlyFans.
Make sure to follow Vikaas.
That's fake news. That's fake news. No, I don't have. I'm not like.
Make sure to donate at least $5. He is desperately in need of love and affection.
Same with Nico. He really needs some love.
Ryan's parents picked him out. Now
Oh no, trust me, I'm fine.
No, Ryan needs help.
No, I think you need. Okay, this is great. Thanks for watching.
Make sure to leave a little heart in the comments for Vikaas and Ryan,
and for Rashab for being handsome. Rashab wasn't really part of the debate, but he's very handsome, and I think he needs a heart.
Make
And
sure to check out our website.
Yeah.
For more from me, I do more domestic politics, but Vikaas also sometimes covers the domestic politics, but also is covering a lot of foreign policy stuff.
I'm another domestic guy. I should probably be doing stuff soon.
Yeah, I covered like CCP and like how they're not doing good things in Tibet, like how they're just objectively trash and no one should aspire to be them.
Yeah, they're the CCP. That's what they do. Terrible things.
And then me and Ryan have videos and
Yeah.
have a couple articles as well. So make sure to check out the website, spend some time on it.
I have some videos that I've just done in conjunction with Nico, but maybe I'll be uploading more soon, or we'll see.
I think I said everything. That was all the shout outs. Oh, thank you to our sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends.
I'd also like to thank my mom.
ExpressVPN, Ryan's mom.
I'd like to thank my kindergarten teacher.
But yeah, okay.
I'd like to thank
my
my
guy
husband.
out of the can.
What did you say?
I don't know about
free my guy Jerry G out of the can.
Yeah.
All right.
Jerry Garcia.
Thank you very much, young Twitter, for watching.
The lead singer of the Grateful Dead.
Hope you found this debate entertaining. Hope you learned something. Make sure to comment some whatever your opinions or something. And yeah, I'm gonna cut off now because otherwise the video is gonna be too long. So
yeah. Thank you.
Appreciate it.